Season 3, Episode 4? Season 3, Episode 4, DeCodEd Podcast. The podcast that comes and goes as it pleases. No real sponsorship. Just the two of us doing our thing on the weekend.
I like that. I actually, I love that. I love that. Comes and goes as it pleases. That's awesome.
That should be our bumper if we ever make one.
I'm going to change this. I'm going to move this around a little bit. Tell me about this.
I already told you what I want. And you're not doing it. I want that camera four meters away so you can zoom in as you please. That's your project. I'm giving you homework at the start of the podcast. Homework.
Okay. I'm back in a second. You say something. You watch.
I say something. Well, let me talk about September then. September, there's all kinds of things to do in September. And now that we're near the end, I feel like I've gotten all the paperwork done. And I feel this great feeling of accomplishment. And then the feeling of accomplishment's there, but September's still here, and I feel like it should be November. Okay, you're back?
Yeah, here. Okay, we're going to test drive this.
We're going to test drive the zoom in. So if people are listening, they have no idea what we're doing. Chris is playing with some camera options as we record the podcast, record the podcast.
I know, eh? So all of this is on tape. All of this ridiculousness. Oh, how about that, eh?
Something you just did there, the way you came into the camera and moved it around, it reminded me of very 1985 footage. Something about the graininess of the camera and the way you approached it. Very grainy.
Here we go. Oh, see how far I can zoom out. So that's five times.
Oh, wow. You know what you should do? When you talk about something serious, you should zoom in on yourself.
Let's see. It's not smooth, though. Watch. I'll just hold it down. Does it actually come in? No, see, I got to stage it. Boom, 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 boom.
I got to stage it. Okay, I hear some weird noise over there at your house. What's going on? You're ruffling papers or something?
Well, let me first talk the whole DeCodEd, that the podcast that comes and goes as it pleases. I like that. It reminds me of life with cat. So us getting the new cat. So we have a new animal in the house, and for the long time I had cats as a kid. So I'm fine with cats. I'm cool with cats, but I forgot how independent cats are. Like, they're not. This cat it comes and goes as it pleases in the house, and there's nothing doing. You just kind of you roll you roll with it. You roll with it. The cat doesn't want to be around you. The cat's gonna bite you, scratch you, and then the next second the cat's gonna be back in the room again, purring and looking for affection. It feels like having a cat as a pet, as near as I can figure, is as close to an abusive relationship that I've been in so far in my life. No joke. This cat is like, this cat is like such a sweet little cat. And you're like, oh, like, you're a sweet little cat's name is Ollie. Ollie, like, you're a cool dude. And then he bites your hand, and I'm like, I'll do a shout out, Mayor, if you're out there and you happen to be listening to, DeCodEd. I know you got cats. You love your cats. I'm trying to remember. I do love this cat. This cat, there's a lot of coolness in this cat. I told you the cat's polydactyl, right? So
you did tell me that, yeah.
Yeah, right in here, the cat's got an extra toe. So when the dude walks around the house, he looks like a bulldog, because he's kind of, I guess cats, their paws are kind of like that normally, right? But because he's got 6 toes on his feet, he's actually got thumbs. Like, he's got these great big mitts on him. So he's a crack up to watch running around, because I don't think he has got the same traction as like regular cats. The dude is constantly like doing donuts and drifting through our house, trying to take corners and just not be able to grab. So anyway, I don't want to belabor it. DeCodEd, the podcast that comes and goes as it pleases.
That's why you should rename your cat to DeCodEd. That's all I'm saying. And
I
the
don't think
yeah,
the family wouldn't go for it at this
no.
point. Yeah, they would understand. They would understand. They're like, okay, cool, no, right? They're like, we get it, but no.
Here's the
Can I,
thing, dude.
do
When
I
you
can I move this back? Can I move the
Yeah,
camera? So
because
yeah, okay.
when you talk to the camera, you're not talking to the mic, and then we lose some of your vocals. It's just the Clough setup is just I don't know, dude. It's
It
like
is the worst. It is the worst. It absolutely is the worst. Like
I'm
look at this.
sorry, I have
This
to say
angle's terrible.
it's like a giant tiger setup. I'm sorry.
Ah,
I'm sorry, Clough. And this is,
look how small I look now. It's like I'm
Clough
at
the
the
dwarf.
yeah. It's like I'm at the adults table. I know. I totally look like I could be Lord of the Rings. I'd need some sort of a going on a mission. That's it. I just. Anyways.
Yeah, for anybody who's not actually watching, they're done. They're done. Like they shut it off. They're like, I'm not listening to this. Anybody
Good
who's
thing that
watching,
we record it, right? It's recorded. So.
for anybody who's watching, I guess this could be kind of amusing.
No, it's not. It's completely ridiculous. I'm actually starting to upset myself.
Oh, here we go. This is whacked, man. What are you doing?
The up nose camera. That kind of works a little better though, right?
Yeah, at least now we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm back centered. I haven't, yeah.
Hashtag giant tiger setup.
Giant tiger
Cloughs.
setup.
You know what? Do you do this with chasing squirrels? Do you mess around this much with chasing squirrels?
Well, dude, there's no video, right?
So, perfect. I'm waiting for you to say no, you don't.
Oh, I probably would, I guess, if I could. I just don't. You know what? Okay, you know what it comes down to? I'm gonna broaden this out. Is that I'm so irreverent when it comes to my systems of things that I do. Like I don't roll up to my desk. I don't roll up to my desk and think to myself, like as I'm walking up, I'm doing a visual inventory. Is everything in the right place? With my kit, I'm like, can I fit in the chair? Is there enough space for me to put like my arms down on the desk? And can I get my coffee there? And I think I've always been that with my workspaces. And we were talking, I think, a little bit in the on-ramp. Like I wish I had a little bit more rigor in my approach to keeping my spaces clean. And on one hand, I could say somehow it sparks creativity. Like I like to have my markers and pens, Post-it notes, like all the little tools of creativity. But when it comes to this tech setup, I got to be honest. Like I wish I had. I've often thought about this. Like I wish I had the money just to buy a decent iMac, and then I'm not moving gear around. It's got the decent screen. Like everything is just there right in front of me. I say maybe a PC, but I think I'd probably just, for fewer headaches, I'd stay with Apple. My MacBook and we've had a great life together. But I've told you before, like it's a rat's nest of a cable configuration. And if I look at it the wrong way, then the next day it's just not going to work. Because there has been times where I've sat down here and the kit just isn't working. And all I do is unplug it, plug everything back in, reboot it, and away we go. But it is a giant tiger's setup. It is. And chasing squirrels, I think because it's audio, I don't mess with it as much. I just go and I do the Zencaster thing. Like I don't mess with it too much.
Thanks for explaining.
Yeah. It's one more explanation. You were starting to ask something though about squirrels before I stomped all over your question.
No idea. It's gone. You know what? That's what this month has been like for me. It's just gone. Yeah. And when you were playing around with your camera and stuff, and you told me to talk. Here's what I landed on. The beginning of the month when school started, there's like a ton of paperwork that needs to be done and handed into the office by a particular date. So now we've come to the end of September and my paperwork's all in. And yet I feel like I've been at school for months. I feel like it should be November, And just looking back, the perspective is interesting. Time just seems to fly in the classroom. Like I'm looking at my long range plans and I'm like, holy cow, like I really should be ending certain things now, moving on to new things. And it's just interesting. It's only been the first month. There's 9 more to go. But I'm already like got to shift, got to shift, got to shift. And I guess that's just the way it operates. It's weird. It's weird. I'm looking back on my startup, and in some ways it was smoother than other years. In other ways it was not as smooth. That's all I wanted to say.
I've been trying. September is always the month when I say to myself, I wish I would have. Actually, I go on a different route. So in my folders in my Google Drive for my lesson plans and all my resources, I always have a note to self document that's open, and I just use that. I keep that in the folder. With each of the lessons, and I'll drop information onto it. Next time you do this lesson, do this thing, or make sure that make sure you tweak the timing on this. Like, so I'll give myself a bunch of little cues, and it's all sort of like date stamps, so I can track it. And it's funny how I don't always have time to look at it, which is kind of remarkable to me. It's interesting that I'm starting to think about my method of organization as in, why does it seem like I have time to put things in place, but I don't have time to find them again? And I've never really thought about my method of organization that way, that you have to simultaneously, for me, I have to start simultaneously designing my method for sort of recollection, and not just saying this is a good system to organize it when I put it away on a shelf. Well, what's the thing that's going to cue me to go back and find it again when I need it? Because I'm coming across stuff from 2 years ago, and so I'm like, yeah, that would have been a really good reminder this year. But I don't have it ingrained. And every year I go to look, but it's not as like, there's things I think about at the tail end of August and the beginning of September that automatically kind of kick in. It's like the breathing and the blinking of my pedagogy. It just happens. But then there's other things that I just struggle with reminding myself to get to. Yet I tend to document one part of it. Like, I tend to do part of it, as I said, the reshelving part of it, but I don't have a really great way to remind myself to go get it again. So I think to myself, well, should I just put reminders in my phone? Or is it a book that I need to have on the shelf, a binder that says my startup binder, and it's just all kind of laminated checklists? Do I almost put together like a structured learning lesson like I would for one of my students, like a task analysis? Get red binder, open to page 1, read page 1, like just that. And as I do it, I tick it off. I'm like, good job. I give myself a little, I don't know, a treat each time I do the right thing. But that's what September is like for me. It's simultaneously being in awe of the amount of data that I've kind of stored away, and thinking to myself, why don't I have a tool that highlights this stuff when I need it, as in it brings it to mind? Because I can't keep it all in my head. I can easily admit that there are too many data points, conversations, triangulation of multi-bits. Like, there's just too many of them for me to track. And I'm not stepping off from that responsibility. I'm just acknowledging that I can't do it. And I'm even wondering if I ever could do it, or I've just always been in this struggle to kind of keep all the data in place. I was thinking the other day, I was like, what happens? How is it that we get these lists? Actually, I'll ask you the question. Do you do checklists? Just in the general sense, do you track your to-do lists with checklists and stuff?
Like for my kids or for me?
Let's just say the whole you. What spaces do you use checklists?
I grab a sticky note and I just start to write things that need to get done. That's how I do it. And then I just cross them off as they're done. And I take this sticky note and I will attach it. I don't have any here, but what it looks like is like my bag of work is really like a couple of packs of paper, like IEPs, for example, and then they'll have sticky notes on them. So that when I put them down at home, the next time I walk over and I look, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to get this done. I'll go do it, cross it off. Like, that's how I operate. Or I'll email myself, because I know it's going to be at the top of my email. And I can just deal with it later.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I organize myself. Sticky notes at work and emails.
Yeah, I'm not. I've become efficient. I think I've become efficient in my paperwork, but I don't think I'm getting everything done that I should. Because I was thinking about what happens with. So I used Google Keep, and I'll open up just a note for the day, just dated, and then start my check boxes all the way down. And then what I've tried to do is by midweek, I'll go back and I'll review. So I'll have dailies, and then Wednesday I'll go back and make sure that I'll go back and I'll review the notes, my different check things, and just make sure that I actually got everything done. Because for me, and I think this is just about my brain, it could be about other people's brain, but for me, I have so many little thoughts racing through my head, and I will quite literally, something will pop up in the middle of that flow. That's cool. I saw that. Oh, you got to turn your mic back on though. Zinger.
My Giant Tiger setup.
That was the Giant
Hey,
Tiger.
does that mean we're going to get in trouble from Giant Tiger?
Maybe they can throw us some. No, I don't want coin. What would I want from Giant Tiger?
You know what? We want some of their swag, some of their GT boutique.
I think I want a T-shirt just with that Giant Tiger icon on it.
That'd be cool.
I've already forgotten what I was saying. Let me finish my thought before you go to your T-shirt, because I'll lose it because I didn't write it down. I have so many thoughts, and somehow within the flow of those thoughts of things that I have to get done in the day, I've come to recognize that, because at one point I thought I'm just not very good at organization whatsoever, and it actually got me kind of upset because I thought this is a tool that as a teacher you got to be good at. But here's some realizations that I've come to as far as managing those checklists. One, if I can, and when I can, if I have a thought that means I have to action something, I got to do it right away. If I can do it. So there's things that, and this is just kind of like the mechanics of my lists. For me to put something on a list that I need to do, let's say in the next hour, if I can actually do that thing right now, then it needs to go to the top of the list. I still need to track everything, but I have to have a way to sort of, and this is the prioritizing, right? But it's not just prioritizing as in setting it in a sequence. It's prioritizing as, am I actually capable of taking care of that one small thing right now? We've touched on this before in a different way when we talked about when we got better at doing podcasting, and all of a sudden, what was 10 hours before for an episode, we brought back to 7 hours, whatever number we ended up at. And then that 3 hours represents something very, very real. And I think you and I have really come to appreciate the realness of that because of what we're doing now with DeCodEd. If there isn't the time, we don't do it because we can't do it. So there is a true value associated with an hour and a half of our time on a Saturday. So if I can actually get it done right away, I got to get it done right away. And then the second part to this is that I am pretty good at kind of saying, yeah, I don't need to do that thing. Like I can let it fall off the list. But in doing so, I upset myself because I say, well, why did I put it on the list in the first place? Why didn't I know at the time when I was writing that down? Why did I bother? Because again, I've just wasted my time again. So putting the right things on these lists, sometimes I'm not very good at it. And so September is that constant flow of what should I be doing right now? What did I tell myself I should be doing? I should have done differently, I guess, 12 months ago, because September speaks to September, right? It's not like by the time you hit June that you can really, really talk to your September self. You need to go year to year. So that stuff that's happening in September, my notes about September, I got to bring those back up in August again so that I'm hitting September just like a monster. But I haven't figured out a good way to do that. And I get weirded out sometimes at how sometimes I'm cavalier. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I'll get to it. Second chance. I'll get the next chance next September to get this right. And this ain't me saying I'm not trying to be professional and polished and get everything else done. I can walk away from it. I'm like, okay, I missed my opportunity.
At one school I worked at, I had this awesome closet. It was huge. And what I did for myself was on the inside of the closet, I had a sticky note with startup notes. And it was awesome because I felt like, okay, when I get back to school at the end of August, I just need to open the door, look to the left, see the list, and just follow the list. Because the list had like the non-negotiable stuff that I had to have in the room, set up in the room, purchase for the room. And then just it worked at that school. And then when I moved to the next school, I just didn't do it anymore. And for me, I hear what you're saying. There's like an ebb and flow. Like I'm on performance appraisal this year. I just got the email the other day, but I knew it was my year. And so I've been a little tighter with my approach. I've been a little tighter with my planning. I've been a little
Have you been
tighter.
successful? Have you? Do you feel like you're successful, or you're still kind of trialing this
No, no.
mindset?
I feel like, I'll tell you what I feel like. I tell you, it stifles my creativity.
Yeah.
100% stifles my creativity. The last time I was on performance appraisal, I remember that. And I remember somebody said to me at a PD opportunity or something, they're like last year was a really innovative year for you. Will this year look the same? And I remember thinking, no. I didn't say that, but I said no. I don't like in my mind. I'm like, I don't think so because I'm so. It's funny, eh? Like I was so dialed in that it my creativity had nowhere to go. And that's not to say that when I'm being creative, other things are falling off the plate. It's just a different way to approach it. So for me, a performance appraisal seems really official, and it seems really like I don't want to leave too many gray areas there for my admin to deal with. I don't even know if I'm making sense. When I'm creative, I'm living in a gray area where things are happening more on the fly. Um, things are things are rolling like it's truly an organic experience. But that doesn't mean that like my A&E is off or my parent communication's off or like none of that's off. It just looks different. And when I'm on appraisal, I'm more I'm on the traditional train and I'm riding the tracks that have been there since 1952. Like I'm not thinking about, riding my skateboard down this alleyway and this street to get to the destination that I'm ultimately going to get to, on either mode of transportation. But I'm just a little bit more dialed in. I'm a little bit more aware of like my practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that maybe that's kind of the weight that I've been feeling on my shoulders this month. I just feel like every time I go to do something a little different or innovative with the kids, I feel like I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, which really sucks because when I'm doing the innovative stuff, they're on fire and I'm getting lots of good data. So it's weird because I'm telling you I feel a conflict, but I'm also telling you that I'm still doing my job like effectively and honestly, but it just feels different. So it's been working for me and like I'm doing okay. And you and I were talking about on the on ramp about assessment and evaluation practices and good ones, not so good ones, and then sticking by growing success. And like, I figure if you're doing your stuff based on what it says in growing success, then you're doing okay because that's the document that is there for us to refer to with respect to assessment and evaluation, which some people aren't looking at. And so, like I told you, I spend a lot of time conferencing with my students. Well, in the middle of that, I feel like, oh no, if I'm doing this, I'm not doing that. But at the end of the conferencing, I'm like, okay, well, it was so worth it because I got so much rich data. So it's just one of these things. It's like in the middle of the decision you make and the practice that you're following in your room or with your kids, there's conflictual feelings. And I find when I'm on appraisal, the conflict seems to be thicker and stronger than other times. So that's what's going on right now. And you know what? In past years, I've worried that I would not pass my appraisal stuff, but there's no question in my mind I'm going to be successful. There's no question. Like before, I'd be like, well, there's always a chance. I'm telling you right now, there's no chance I'm failing. I know how to do my job and I do my job. So I'm not failing. I'm just a little concerned about, are there any major gaps in my work? And I don't think there are, but I'm sure I'll find out when one of my administrators sits down and we start the process. So anyway, uh, speaking of creativity, it was my birthday a little while ago, and I got some money, which is always
Nice.
nice. It's nice, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I had the itch, to go out and get a real camera and a laptop, like a Mac, to do my video editing. I had the itch. The itch is gone right now because, again, it's like, am I ready to drop like all my money on that? And it would change everything, right? It would change my whole approach to like how I capture video in my classroom and what I do in my spare time. I was talking to a couple of parents the other night. My son was at baseball, and it's funny. We're at baseball, but I was talking to the hockey parents. So my kid plays hockey with some of these kids, but he's also at the baseball tryouts with the same kids. So we're talking, and one of the moms says to me, she's kind of responsible for sponsorship. So she's kind of been out and about asking people if they're willing to sponsor the hockey team. And she said she loved it. Like she's like, I love like trying to sell this stuff. And she goes, maybe in another life I would be a salesperson because there's something about it that I really like. And then they looked at me and they're like, what would you do? Like if you could do anything, what would you do? And I'm like, I'd make videos. I'd capture video images and do something with it. And they looked at me and they're like, they didn't know if I was joking or not because the dry sense of humor was there. I wasn't smiling. I'm just like, I'd make videos. And they're like, for real? I'm like, yeah, there's something about that process that I really enjoy. Telling a story, capturing moments in time, and then manipulating those moments to meet your need. You know, just that whole process for me, it's it gives me permission to be creative. It gives me permission to, it's okay. Whatever I do with a video, in my mind, is okay because it's part of the creative process. So I could do something, you could watch and say, I really didn't like that. And that'd be okay with me. Unless you were my client, you were paying me, to make something. But as far as, just doing stuff for fun, it it made me think like if I had a better camera and if I had like a machine that was solely used to edit this stuff, I think I could turn it up a couple of notches. Because I'm already feeling like, I told them this, I said, with the stuff I'm doing, I feel like I've maxed out. And I haven't. There's still lots of things I can do with the app I use, but I just feel like I've hit a point where I'm like searching for nuggets to do something a little bit different. And then of course, like they looking at me like you're crazy. Your stuff is awesome. You're crazy. But I told them, well, that's within me, right? Like it's all within me. I'm glad you like the stuff that I put out, but even if you didn't, it'd be okay because I'm not getting paid to do this. So whatever I do has to be for me first, and then for whoever else the audience is that might see it. But it gives me an appreciation for people who watch movies and then say that movie really sucked for whatever reason. And I'm like, wow, I kind of have this appreciation for the people who go out of their way to make like cinematic experiences and stuff like that. Now I'm no movie maker, but there's something about that process that I can relate to, and then I think, wow, like and I've seen movies that I've said, wow, that sucked. Like I was done after the first 3 or 4 minutes, and there's like it's an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying? So I guess in my old age, I truly am looking at judgment and trying to step away from it just for a little bit and wonder a little bit more. And it was funny, I told my class that this week. I'm like, look, can we stop judging for a second? And can we start wondering? And they looked at me funny. And then I used a great example. I pointed to one of the kids and I said, if I'm constantly judging this student on their behavior, it's going to wreck our relationship. And it's funny because the kid's right there as I'm talking about the kid. And I chose a kid that has a great sense of humor and would be good with this. And I was like, but if I wonder why so and so is constantly doing this or that, it puts me in a whole different mindset. I'm now looking for, what's causing this? How can I assist in helping this rather than when I make a judgment, I feel like I'm going from 0 to 100. There's no room to discuss. There's no room to maneuver. Everybody feels stuck. And like I'm telling the kids this, and I'm like, so when you want me to deal with you and your work or your lack of work, do you want me to judge or do you want me to wonder? And they're like, well, we really like it if you wondered because it sounds like it's less of a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think it is. I said, but, don't push me too hard. Like, I'm your teacher. I'm responsible for this room. So there will be judgment. There has to be. It's part of my job to make judgments. But I said, for the little things, like, we don't always need to go heavy and hard all the time. And it's part of the whole daring classrooms thing that we're doing. Like we built an anchor chart about braving and what it means to us. And one of them is one of the words in the list has to do with being non-judgmental and taking time to wonder and to being open to people a little bit more and being open to situations. And I have to say, it's helped me build a faster relationship with my students because it's so explicit. It's so explicit. Like I'll find a kid not doing their job and I'll say, what's going on? And then they do everything they can to not be honest. And I just point to the chart. I'm like, are you being accountable right now? Like, really? Are you being accountable? I said, like, okay, if there's a price to be paid for whatever you're doing or not doing, you're going to pay the price. Like you're not getting out of it. But can you be true to yourself for a minute? And then like when I refer to the chart, like you should do explicitly with young people as you're teaching them, you refer explicitly to the chart and you start talking about it and the process involved. I'm starting to find some of my kids are showing more accountability. It's anecdotal. I don't have any hard evidence. I just say like, Johnny usually is looking at me like I didn't do anything. And now Johnny's like, yeah, I did it. I'm like, okay, Johnny, like, how do we move forward? How am I going to learn to trust you if you're constantly doing the wrong thing? Like, I get the accountability is awesome. That works in your favor. But for goodness sake, like, how am I supposed to trust you when you're like, I'll keep giving you stuff, you keep dropping the ball. Now you're going to admit to dropping the ball. That's the first step. But now we got to move away from dropping the ball. And to be honest with you, these conversations have been worthwhile in my room. So I'm really enjoying that. And I'm kind of living it because it's forcing me to, because I'm living it all day at school. So then at night, I'm trying to live it too with my kids and with myself. So September's going to be over in a couple of days. We're jumping into October. The fall weather's coming. It's been weirdly hot around here.
Don't like it. Don't like it at all.
I don't either, man. But I have to tell you, my classroom, which you've seen, this is so cool. Now that I talk about my classroom, I think it's cool that you've actually seen where I work and the space I have. The classroom last September was hot, like you wouldn't believe. It's not been that hot. Now, mind you, I have 2 fans, and they're constantly going to keep that air moving in there. But I remember last September, I was sweating to the oldies. I've not had that this year, so that's nice. But I mean, you go outside for your yard duty or to get some air, and it's just hot out. It's hot and muggy. Like we went out for our Terry Fox walk the other day, and man, it was hot. It was hot. So I'm looking forward to some of that cool air. The other thing that just popped into my mind now as I was talking about Terry Fox was, as my students and I were learning about Terry Fox this week, I had this moment. I had a David Goggins moment where I saw Terry Fox in a completely different light. That guy was a beast running a marathon a day. He was doing ultra marathons before they were ultra marathons. The guy would think, like, I've done some running and it took me like a long time to get to a point where I felt good about it. This guy's like, I'm gonna run. And as I was watching the videos and listening to him speak, more than ever this year, I felt this really cool connection with his story. And trust me, I got no connection. Like, knock on wood, I've not had cancer. Um,
But
and
it's very much it's one of the canon in whole school I think the all like whole school initiatives, things that are swung around Terry Fox is part of the established canon. Whether you like it or not, something is done on behalf of, in the name of, in support of Terry Fox every year. So you get used to it kind of popping up. So yeah, we're not going to be able to get away from that one. But and not that we should, but it's like it is very much like something. It's really a part of the water. Like we're soaked in it every year.
But what was different for me this year was that I was looking at it differently.
Mhm.
And it's powerful to look at it a little bit differently because it takes you away from just the water, right? Because like you said, it's part of school culture and it's not going anywhere. And I personally don't have issue with the Terry Fox initiative. I don't. I have issues with other initiatives, which I'm not going to talk about right now, but the Terry Fox initiative, I have no issue with that. The guy just seemed like when I watch the videos and I read more about him, wow, like, and maybe I saw new footage that I've never seen before. Like I saw footage of him he was talking about, like, somebody was saying, wow, this really sucks for you. And he's like, well, somebody has to do it. Someone has to get sick and someone has to show the world that, like, you can move on, you can still do good. I was blown away. I don't remember the exact quote, but he basically said, who better than me? So my life's over, kind of thing, right? Like I'm done. But who better than me to do this? And it swung me back to something that I heard recently from Brianna Andreescu, the Canadian tennis player. In an interview she was doing, she talked about um, uh, pressure is a privilege. She said something about pressure being a privilege. And so when people experience a pressure to do well or to stand for something that people will look to them for, a lot of people don't want that pressure. A lot of people are like, no, I don't want that stress. I don't want that pressure on me. But she said that when you step back and you look at that, pressure is a privilege. You're privileged to be in a position where you can make a difference or you can do something that's never been done before, or you can build your capacity around something or build your fluency around something. And that just hit me so hard and just sank right into my head. It did. And, like, it's totally applicable to sport, but when you pull it out of sport and you just apply it to life, like you find yourself in a position where you're now doing something that you never imagined you would have been doing and it feels stressful, try to take that and twist it. Twist it so that you use that stress to power you up instead of power you down. Because what's going to happen when that stress powers you down? You're going to get sick. You're going to get worn out. Your attitude and your behaviors are going to change, not for the better. But if you take it and you turn it around and you use it to power yourself up, you will do stuff that will make you feel better. You will look at these situations in a way where you feel like what you're doing is worth something, not killing you, but building you, growing you. And like I've been talking to my kids about this, like my boys at home about this, and about like my son plays a lot of hockey, and I said to him, you do have like a lot of hockey, and you have times where you don't want to go, but you need to turn that around, and you need to do something with it. Like I told him there are a handful of kids that didn't make the team that you're on. All they wanted was to make that team. They want that pressure, right? And I told him during tryouts, you need to go out there and you need to give it your all every time because you want this. And he's like, yeah, I do want this. I'm like, then what do you have to do to get this? Because there are kids who don't have it, who want it. They're looking for the pressure you feel. They want that on them because right now they're using it to grow rather than use it to back off and walk away from something. And so my goal is to help build it in to my kids with those opportunities that they have, and then help hold their hand as we apply them outside of a sports experience. Anything with school, like my other son had a presentation he had to do, and he was dying to not do it. And I said, why do you feel this way? He's like, it's stressful. I don't want to talk in front of people. And he gave me all the standard responses for someone who doesn't want to do a presentation. I've heard it all before. I've even experienced it. Just to him, you know what? If you go into school and you think about it as you have an opportunity some kids don't have. Some kids can't speak as well as you. Some kids don't go to school every day because they've got family issues or whatever issues happening in their lives outside of school that, school's the last thing on their mind. I said, you don't live in that situation. You have parents that are together and they love you. You have food, you have clothing, you have everything you need, and you have stuff that you want that you have that you don't need. So when you go and do that presentation, instead of thinking about, this really sucks, I don't want to do this because it makes me feel this way, how about just for a second, 30 seconds, turn it around and tell yourself, I get to do this. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I get to do it. And there are other people who don't get to do it who would rather be in my shoes than in the shoes they're wearing right now. I said, can you just promise me you'll try to just say that to yourself a couple of times and see how you feel? And he said, yeah. And then he went to school and he did it. And then after he told us, he was like, it was fine. It went well. And we're like, exactly. You were prepared, which adds a whole other layer onto this stuff. Like when people are prepared for stuff, I mean, chances are you're going to be successful. Just like my TPA. I'm prepared. I go to work and I do my job. There's no reason for me to think anymore that I'm not going to be successful. I have administrators that I believe respect me. I believe they believe I'm doing my job. But I'm doing my job. So there's no reason for me to fail. I just need to, it's going to be a moment in time where somebody comes in and observes me teaching and the students learning. And then we have a conversation about, how do I assess and evaluate? How do I communicate with parents? How do I grow as a professional? What are things I'm doing? How do I lead? How do I collaborate? And there's going to be holes. How do I not collaborate and why do I not do that? Or why is it that I avoid a certain type of curriculum that I don't really want to learn more about, right? Like those conversations will happen. And then from that, I will have a direction to go in, and then I can go in my direction. It's just, there have been times where I've worked for people where this opportunity was not seen. It was not seen as a celebration of my work. It was seen more of, let's find the deficits in your work and then let's build from there. And even that approach, when I think about it, the deficit model, it's a killer, man. When all you do is you go hunting for things that people are doing wrong, it's horrible. So instead of my two administrators, I don't believe at all that they're deficit hunters. They're looking to celebrate my work. And as we celebrate the work, there's also room for growth. And so you look at needs. It's not even the way I talk about it sounds great. Of course I have needs. Everybody does. I'm sure there's lots of stuff I'm not doing as well or as efficiently as I can. And those will pop up. in my approach. But I know at the end of the day, I'm doing what I'm doing is successful. There's just room for improvement. Your mic's off.
Zing, one each. I go TPA next year.
Okay.
So yeah. I go TPA next year. So I'm already wondering, like, if I don't know if I'm even gonna be at this school. And it's not because I don't want to stay, but I still have, interest in being closer to home. So I've been wrestling a little bit with that.
Dude, didn't you just get there?
Yeah.
Last year, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you might be looking to get closer to home.
Well, it's always, I mean, I can't say that it's always on my radar. Like, can I do this? Can I do special education programming and still kind of do best life stuff, right? And for me, I do like think about being able to walk to school. I'm not going hard on it. Like, I have to make it happen. But am I watching for it? Yep. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. And I mean, if I am still at the school that I'm at, like, it's a great school, great team there. I really enjoy the work I'm doing. So definitely wouldn't change that. Before I got to bust out soon, can I mention a couple things?
Mention a couple things and show us your picture and then bust.
Okay. So I like Terry Fox popped up this week as well for me, and it popped up in my grade 9 learning strategies class. And it popped up from the point of view of, we were talking about disability. And my kids right now are really fascinated with trying to figure out what's going on inside of their brains that's playing into their disability, their actual learning disability. So we talked about, different styles of learning disabilities. And then we kind of left that for a bit and started to talk about structurally, like, why learning strategies and accommodations, why they work. And it's just where we are in the conversation right now, which I'm really digging, is the students actively engaging in the design of their IEPs. So for them, they're going through and they're vetting the accommodations. They're starting to understand how some accommodations work in some contexts, how some accommodations work great in the past, but they don't work as well now. And yeah, I'm really digging those conversations that I'm having with the kids. The second part to it is that what I'm doing with the grade 9 course this year is I am using a lot of puzzles. I'm trying to find a way to blog a little bit more and to share some of the learning experiences from my classroom. So I've started a little bit of a mini inquiry into the connection between decoding puzzles and brain teasers and how learning strategies are connected with that, and how talking with the students a lot about the tools of doing puzzles, how they can be applied to other classrooms and working out problems. And it's been cool. Like, we've done Sudoku so far, we've done logic puzzles, we've done optical illusions, some number and some manipulative puzzles. Like, they're visual puzzles, but you actually get the tools right in front of you on the table there, the objects to move around. And I'm slowly sort of cataloging their approaches and their observations, and also sort of looking at how I mix the language, so that I'm trying to actually get together like sort of like a cohesive list of strategies depending on the puzzle that we do. So kind of stay tuned. It's interesting work. It's also a great bell ringer. So the students coming in, they're like, okay, what's the brain teaser today? So getting the students in and kind of connecting with each other and working on something right at the bell. Yeah, it's cool work. It's just also another way to kind of rejuvenate yourself into like, I haven't taught the 9s in a while, but I like how this is activating my brain, because now I've used puzzles a lot for students. Now I'm kind of strategically choosing things that are meant to kind of provoke responses in the class, so that they're they're having to work with each other. They're having to sort of like share their answers, and they're having to sort of like get up and move to somebody else in the class who they know might have a certain specialty. So yesterday was a word search, and I picked a word search that I know 2 students in the class. It was a Simpsons word search. 2 kids in the class are constantly talking about all the Simpsons that they watch. And I mean, it's a staged activity, but I also knew it would be a great opportunity for those kids to kind of shine in an activity. And they were knocking the words off, and they became sort of like the expert. It was cool for them to have. So that's what I'm playing with right now in my classroom.
Nice. Can you show us the picture you've been working on?
Yeah. Okay. So let's see if this translates well.
Making it all fit. Interesting. There's something about it that reminds me of Deadpool. I don't know why. Hey, that picture that you posted of our last conversation about our dads.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I've looked at that picture a couple times since you posted it. It's powerful. That picture, the cigarette, the smoke, the ashes, brings back so many memories and feelings, like smells, tastes, sounds.
I know it, dude. I
Wow.
know it. I've had, and it's funny, out of context, I've had people ask me, like, why would you put a cigarette? Like, it actually had a slightly inflammatory effect on a few people. Really? I'm like, you gotta check the epi. The epi was good. I said, and it was one of those times where we kind of just stuck in a very specific moments in time that happened to be rallied around this habit. And you and I have talked about habits. You and I have talked a lot about habits, just one-to-one and in the on-ramp, and sort of analyzing the kind of the dad and the personal side, the Roland and Chris side. And it's funny the distance when you get from a memory like that of your father smoking, that it's not about the smoking anymore. It's not about the act of having an unhealthy kind of like go-to habit. It's all the stuff that was kind of happening around the cigarette. So profound emotional experience when I think about the stuff like that about my father. So it was a cool epi. I enjoyed that.
Well, thanks. It was good to get together with you since we missed a week. But hey, the DeCodEd podcast, it just comes and goes as it pleases, right?
As it pleases. All right, man. I'll connect with you this week.
I'm not touching a thing. Yeah, I'll connect with you this week.
Safe hands, and we'll talk soon.
See ya.